I almost did America's Next Top Model, but I didn't, and I declined for kind of a weird reason. Hey everyone, welcome back to the 1 Year 100 Pounds podcast. My name is Whitney Holcomb, and I am author of the book 1 Year 100 Pounds. For those of you who are new here, I lost 100 pounds on my own when I was 14 years old. I wrote a book about my experience losing weight, how I lost the weight. It is also a tough love guide for how you can also lose the weight if you are tough enough to handle it, because it is my signature non-sugar coated advice for not only losing weight, but creating the life of your dreams. Because that was the main reason behind me wanting to lose weight as a child. I needed to, and I wanted to be healthy, of course, but I also had a lot of other dreams and things I wanted to do in my life that I really felt my weight was holding me back from. One of those was modeling. So when I was younger, the younger fat girl, I always dreamed of being beautiful. I would look at the pictures of the girls in the magazines, and I really wanted to be one of them. But as a child who was bullied pretty much since kindergarten, I was told I was ugly pretty much since day one. And I internalized a lot of that bullying. But when I lost the weight, that tune changed quite a bit. I became way more confident and I got more beautiful. Yes, I know I was always beautiful and worthy at every size, but especially back then, I didn't feel it. And there is just the reality that I lost a lot of weight. I could now wear the kind of clothes I wanted to wear. I had all the confidence. My features were shining through. I was looking pretty good. And strangely enough, just like I had always dreamed of, I became a model. I got noticed, I guess, or discovered when I was a teenager. And that's kind of when I started trying to be a model and learning how to do it. I would work with local photographers and did local fashion shows. I entered a few contests and placed in those contests, but I guess probably the biggest contest or modeling kind of thing I would ever enter would be America's Next Top Model. And I got in and I got chosen, but I ended up not signing the contract, and that is what we are going to talk about today. So for those of you who watched my last video, I talked about Tyra Banks and how she's getting a lot of backlash for showing up on the Victoria's Secret stage, being a plus size girl. When she had her show, as you guys know, America's Next Top Model, where she was accused of fat phobia. She was accused of bullying girls on the show. So a lot of people were upset that, oh, now she gets to be celebrated as this plus size woman when she used to bully girls for the very same body type. Anyhow, I gave my thoughts on that controversy and what I think about Tyra and America's Next Top Model. I also did a poll where I asked you guys your thoughts on Tyra Banks. And I guess, surprisingly or not surprisingly, most of you do not like her. And that's fine, I'm indifferent really towards her and this whole controversy. Again, I say my piece and what I think about it on that video, so you can check that out if you would like to. But what I also mentioned in that video is that I was almost on that show, and I had uploaded this video before, but I did this early on when I started YouTube, and it was not good. It was just, the lighting was off. It's definitely a learning process doing these YouTube videos. It's not so easy as just, click and take a picture, take a video and have it be perfect. But anyway, some of you asked in the comments for me to do this video again and explain my story. So that's what I'm gonna do today. So we're gonna go back to, it must have been 2019 or 2010, because I was either around 19 or 20 years old at the time. And like I said, I had done some modeling already. I had done contests and stuff, but I was still living in my hometown in Virginia. I had not moved to New York City yet. And this was around the time when the America's Next Top Model show was still pretty popular. I don't know what season they were on, but it was still pretty big. And I remember one day seeing something, must have been on the internet, that they were casting for the next cycle of America's Next Top Model. And I don't know what cycle it would have been. I really can't remember. Like I said, I can only remember really the date, because I know I was not 21 at the time. So it must have been 19 or 20. And yeah, it had to be, because this was around the time that I was in the process of publishing my book, which will come into the story a little later. So I know it must have been 19 or 20, so which had to have been 2019 or 2010. And like I said in the other video, it may have been one of those cycles, or maybe the very first cycle, I don't know, where they were accepting models under 5'9", because I know for a while, like you had to be 5'9" to apply, and I'm only 5'8". And I know that at one point they did a cycle where they were accepting models like 5'7" and up. Anyhow, I saw the advertisement on, it must have been Facebook or the internet, I don't know. And I do remember it being like the last week or maybe like the last day you could apply. And I applied. I sent in my pictures, you know, I sent over like a little bit about me. And I'm not sure at this time if I had told them about my weight loss. I don't know. I actually don't think I do. I don't think that came into play until the actual casting. But anyhow, like I said, I sent in my stuff, and it was pretty much like the next day, maybe that week, where I heard back from them and they asked me to come to New York City to do like a group casting there. So I went to New York City with my sister and we stayed in a hotel overnight, and I showed up in my, you know, my model uniform, which is like, you know, basic like black jeans, basic like black or white tank top. And I go to this casting area. It must have been like some kind of like studio office. I forget where, I think it was somewhere in Midtown. And I show up with, you know, there's a bunch of other girls there, a bunch of other models. I don't know how many, but there were a lot. So they had you come in and you were kind of in this, like, I remember being a really beautiful kind of like office loft. It had like a lot of windows and hardwood floors, and they had all these like chairs set up. And so we, you know, they had us all sit in this one room together, and they gave us numbers to put on our shirt. And I remember like this was like a whole day event. Like I'm pretty sure we had to show up like early in the morning. You know, they gave us some numbers, and then they were doing like castings in groups because there were just so many girls. So, you know, yeah, I remember we showed up. I remember at one point, like I was not the first group to go. They told us like, you know, come back in like a couple hours. So me and one of the other models walked around, and, you know, we got lunch or whatever, came back, and honestly, it was just a lot more waiting around. At this point, didn't really meet too many people. There were like, you know, a couple like casting people that were there. You didn't really meet the casting directors until you went into like the actual audition room. And right up front, you know, Tyra and the rest of the judges were not there. Like this was not the round where you get to meet them. They have initial casting agents first to, you know, vet the girls before you go on to the next cycle. Anyhow, like I said, we were all waiting in that room for a really long time. Finally, it was time for our group to go into like the casting room, which was just a separate room where they had like the camera set up and they had the producers and the casting directors in there. And that was when they would do like a whole kind of like group casting, I guess, for the girls, just to kind of like get a look of everyone, get like, you know, their name, see how they appear on camera. So my group was called, and we were all in line in this hallway to go see the casting directors in front of the camera and the lights and all the producers. And that's when one of the casting directors told us, okay, girls, you know, take your clothes off, get in your bikinis, like this is your time. You have to go in front of them and, you know, show your body. And this is pretty standard. This is not like, I don't mean to say this is like skeevy or like pornographic, you know what I mean? This is just pretty standard in like the modeling industry. Like you kind of have to get naked a lot in front of a lot of people because you're trying on clothes all the time, and they want to see like, you know, your shape of your body. Yeah, I mean, it's to judge to see what size you are, what, you know, what you've got to work with under there. So this is a point where I start to freak out a little bit because, as some of you may know, if you've watched some of my other videos, I do have loose skin from losing 100 pounds. I have both loose skin and stretch marks. And back then, I was very self-conscious about it. Even though I looked pretty normal with clothes on, I mean, yeah, I guess I can't say it is the worst case of loose skin or stretch marks, but it's definitely not normal. It is definitely not up to like, you know, typical like bikini model standards. So this was a problem for me, and technically really had always been a problem for me, especially for trying to be a model. But I will leave a link to that video of me showing you my loose skin and stretch marks if you'd like to see it, just so you kind of know, you know, what I was dealing with at the time. Then you also keep in mind though, I was a lot skinnier at this time. I was like only like barely 120 pounds, but I was still self-conscious. I mean, you know, rightly so, as a young girl, having a body that's not like totally normal. And like I said, like I knew this kind of might be a problem. I knew that this would come up because I had done other modeling stuff before and talked to agencies before, but it was always something I kind of worked around. Because here's the thing, there are different types of models. Like not everyone has to be like a Victoria's Secret model or like a bikini model, right? Like you can definitely just do modeling in your clothes. You can also just be a beauty model, which is mostly what I was and what I like doing. And basically a beauty model is just like you're modeling like your face, and you're modeling like, makeup, jewelry. You can make a whole career out of that. And that is basically what I wanted to do and what I was comfortable doing. But I also knew that this was part of the show. This is part of really any casting process. And I don't know, I don't really know what my mindset was at the time. I guess I was thinking like, okay, maybe they won't have us get in our bikinis at the casting. Maybe I can kind of hide it at least until I get to the show. Or maybe I can just ask to not take my clothes off. Or I don't know. I guess I just couldn't not take up the opportunity to be on America's Next Top Model. You know what I mean? So, but this was always in the back of my mind. Like I knew this moment would come and I was just so uncomfortable with it. I mean, I had my bikini on underneath just in case, but I was just like, I was like, maybe I'll get the confidence and I'll be able to do it and just tell my situation. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, that was a really big moment for me. And as I'm standing in line and it was about to be my turn, I walk up to the casting directors and the producers and I'm like, nope, can't do it. Can't take my clothes off. Yep, sorry. And they were like, wait, what? Like, what's going on? They wanted to know more. So they had me kind of go off to the side. They're like, okay, go off to the side. We'll look at the other girls and then we'll talk to you, okay? So they did. All the girls, did their thing and they talked to me and the producer came over and she was very nice and she was talking to me and she's like, okay, like, why don't you want to be in your bikini? And I told her, I was like, look, I lost 100 pounds. I have like stretch marks and some loose skin. Like, I'm just not comfortable. Like, I don't have like the body these other girls do. And I couldn't tell then, I could tell now. That was like when something like dinged in her mind and they were very interested in me from that point forward. And she was very nice. She was like, well, the thing is like, the modeling industry, entertainment, this is all smoke and mirrors. Like we can put makeup on your stretch marks. Like, we can, do the camera in different angles. Like she was basically just trying to talk me down and just try to make me feel more confident and more comfortable. And you know what? It worked. Like I was someone who was so self-conscious of that. Like I thought that I was gonna get there and they were gonna laugh in my face. Surprisingly, honestly, with including this experience and the rest of my experience in the modeling industry, for the most part, this was kind of the response I got. Like I always, showed up and I'm almost like apologizing for not being perfect, right? But almost every photographer, casting director, whatever, pretty much said the same thing. They're just like, look, no one's perfect, but our job is to make you look perfect. So in a way, that was kind of comforting in kind of a messed up way, if you know what I mean. But anyway, I did. I got in my bikini and I got in front of the camera and they had like a little interview and they wanted to know about my weight loss. And, they had me talk about like my insecurities, my loose skin. And they were all, really cool, really nice, and very interested in me. So right after that interview, they basically gave me the contract on the spot because we were supposed to come back for another interview like the next day. Like if you passed the first round of casting, then those girls would come back again. And I didn't know that. Me and my sister, like we didn't have any money at the time. So I was like, oh, I can't come back tomorrow. Like we only have the hotel for one night. And they're like, okay, fine. Like, well then here's the contract, right? They told me like, I got it. Like I was on the show. All I had to do was, sign the contract, look through it. I had to get like a physical exam. Like there's all these little things you have to do before you can be on the show. And from that point forward, I think it was like only a 2-week period I would have before they would fly me out to wherever the location was and they would start the whole process. Oh, I just realized I had something in my hair. Anyway, so here's the thing. I know for a fact that they were so interested in me because I had lost the weight. And I get it. It is definitely something that would have made for a good reality TV show, right? Like you have this girl who lost 100 pounds and she was the bully fat girl and now she's a model, and now she's really pretty. But the big thing on the show, which would be probably the whole controversy of that season, probably, was that I had loose skin and stretch marks and I would have to be in a bikini. So looking back at it now, and I kind of knew it back then too, I wasn't dumb, But I knew that that was the main draw to wanting to have me on that show, because that was TV. That was, sensationalism. That was something that was gonna, cause people to have a conversation. So that is why they very much wanted me on the show. That is why they gave me the contract up front and wanted me to come back. But after I got back from New York City and I was looking at the contract with my parents, we were looking through some of the stipulations. And one of them that they kind of sneaked in there in the contract is basically, it said, there was a clause that said, anything that you do after America's Next Top Model. And it was very vague. Like it didn't specify anything in the modeling industry. It didn't, specify like any contract that you gained from America's Next Top Model. It very much just said pretty much anything I do after America's Next Top Model, I will owe them, like the company, America's Next Top Model, I will owe them a portion, whatever that portion was, in perpetuity, meaning forever. So we saw that and okay, well that was kind of weird. And I even talked to someone, one of the casting people, I emailed them and I said, look, I have this concern, like what exactly does this mean? And she didn't really have much to say about it. She was just like, oh, I don't know. You don't really have to worry about that. Like that probably won't even come into play, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, basically what that clause is there for is if you go on that show and then you do become like a supermodel and you get like lots of brand deals or whatever, they are basically going to claim that it is because of America's Next Top Model that you got those contracts. And so therefore, you kind of owe them like their commission fee. But again, because it didn't state like, okay, specifically modeling jobs, which even though would kind of be unfair, it didn't state anything like specifically, it just said pretty much whatever you do. So because it was so vague, I mean, technically like it could have been something like, okay, like what if I invented a product or wrote a book and then they claim, well, okay, well you had that book come out after America's Next Top Model and you gained, all these followers, this audience from America's Next Top Model, that's why you made the money, you owe us money. So at that time, I was in the process of writing my book. Again, for those of you who don't know, I wrote my book when I was 18 years old. I wrote it when I was 18, but the whole process between writing, editing, finding a literary agent, and then finding a publisher, it took a while. So my book was not really published until I was 23, but I wrote the first draft when I was 18. And around this time, 19, 20, I was in that process. I found my literary agent pretty early on. So I don't remember now. I think I had either I just signed with Simon & Schuster, or maybe we were still looking for publishers at this time. I don't know, but it was in the works. I definitely had my literary agent and we were going through the whole process. And this is what ultimately made me not do America's Next Top Model, was because of that clause, because I knew I had this book coming out and I didn't want to go on this show, have my book come out, and then again, have my book come out, have whatever else I did in the future, and basically have it be legally binding that I owe them money forever. And who's to say whether or not they really would go after me for something like that? Like, I mean, the way the casting director described it, she's like, oh no, like they wouldn't do that. But I mean, come on, are you really gonna trust these people? Like they make reality TV for a living. And no, they probably wouldn't go after you if you didn't make any money from anything you did. But if you became really successful, like if you did something and became a billionaire, you bet your ass that they would come after you for money. They would definitely want their share. And because it was legally in the contract and you signed that, they could. So I turned down the show for that specific reason. But looking back on it now, I'm glad that I didn't go on that show. I think even at the time, even though it was really exciting, the chance to meet Tyra and be on the show and be on TV, and the chance to, possibly be America's Next Top Model, I think even then I was uncomfortable with the idea of going on the show and having to be naked basically and showing my number one insecurity to the world. At least that was my mindset then, because again, I was so young. It did take me kind of a long time to overcome my insecurities with my loose skin. Today I probably wouldn't care. Once you hit your 30s, it's amazing, the amount of fucks you just do not give anymore. But back then I did. I was really insecure about it back then. And honestly, probably for good measure, because again, remember this was 10, 15 years ago. The world was a lot harsher, towards women's bodies at that time. So I definitely would have been eviscerated on the show, if not by the judges or the other models on the show, then definitely by people in the media. Like, I think it definitely would have been like another like Robin episode. You know, the Robin, the model who was like a size 6 or 8, and she kept getting called fat. It definitely probably would have been something like that. And from a TV producer standpoint, I get it, because that's what's causing, you know, all the controversy. That's causing the conversation. So I was definitely going to be that token girl on that season, you know, because every season they had some girl that had something. Like one time it was one girl who had vitiligo, right? You know, then the other girl, she was a size 6'8" when all the other girls were a size like 0 to 4. I would have been the girl who lost a lot of weight and not only, you know, okay, became pretty, which would have been kind of cool in itself, but I had the loose skin too. So that would have, you know, added to the kind of like, whoa factor. So who's to say, you know, what would have come from that show if I had done it? Like I said, I definitely would have gotten a lot of criticism, a lot of, you know, bullying. I may have gotten a lot of people who liked that. I think now, even when I showed the video of my loose skin, like a lot of people, it's like, it's refreshing to see, because I know I'm not the only one now with loose skin, and I'm sure people would have been interested in that. And I'm not even sure how it would have gone on the show as far as the judges. Like, would they have framed it like, okay, this is the underdog gonna be on top, and like they would have been kinder to me for that reason and been more understanding and worked with me more? Or would have been the opposite, where it was like, oh no, like she wants to be a model, well, she's gonna have to figure out how to hide that loose skin. You know, I don't know. Either way, I just don't think I could have handled that at that time. Again, because I was just so insecure about it. Like, it was just so embarrassing for me that it probably would have just like destroyed my mental health. It just would not have been good for me. And also looking back on it, yeah, I would have gone through all that, right? The bullying from people online, the bullying from people in the show. And then for what? Like, honestly, I'm sorry, but do you guys really remember any of the models from the show? Not saying that they were not good models or not beautiful girls, but nothing ever really came from that show. Like, I don't ever remember there really being like a supermodel that came from those shows. Same with even American Idol. I mean, I think there were a couple, you know, like Kelly Clarkson and a few others that we remember, but most of them went on the show, they won the contest, and then you don't really hear from them. And who knows what the reasoning is behind that? Did these people, did they not have good management when they got out? Did they not, you know, really actually want the career and to be famous as soon as they actually had it? Like, who really knows, you know, why they didn't become as big as, you know, supposedly they all wanted to be? But I think in some part, it probably, number one, probably has to do with like the weird clauses that they have. Like, so these girls are, the little money that they do make from their jobs or their contracts, they have to give a lot of it to Tyra. And also, I think that there is a little bit of a stigma towards people who go on those reality shows, because, you know, honestly, like, I am just not even someone that really watches a lot of reality shows. I did watch that one when it was popular. I watch a little bit of Love is Blind now, but I've never been into reality shows because I find them so like tacky and just kind of trashy for the most part. And like, it's so obvious that they're scripted, you know, and it's so obvious that they are pitting the characters against one another just to make good TV. A lot of it's fake. And I definitely just don't have that personality for a reality show. Like, I don't get into the drama. It's just not my thing. So yeah, ultimately, I think I dodged a bullet. I'm glad that I did not go on the show. I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, coulda, shoulda, woulda at this point. I mean, maybe I would have gone on the show and yeah, again, for sure, I would have gotten some bullying, but who knows, maybe it would have gotten more people to buy my book, or would have gotten, you know, me an actual modeling contract. Maybe I could have gotten, you know, some good publicity from it. Who knows, right? That's the best case scenario. But then again, we still have that clause in the contract where even if I did become really famous and rich and had all these things going for me, I would only be making a fraction of that, because supposedly in that contract, that the show, Tyra, they would be making a lot of that as well. Ultimately though, you know, everything happens for a reason. Like I said, I think it worked out for the best. I really did, because I just think that at that time, it was not the right time for me to embark on something like that. And I would not want to even be on something like that today. Like I said, I'm not a reality TV person. I would be such a bad character on those shows because I am just not like dramatic, and I'm just not I just don't give in to all the drama and the stupid fighting. It's ridiculous to me. Anyhow, guys, that's my story. I wish I could have said that I met Tyra, but I didn't. But it's just kind of one of those fun little stories that, you know, I can say that I did. I went to the casting in New York City, which was kind of exciting and fun. Anyhow, guys, thank you for watching or listening if you are listening on Spotify. And if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Tough love weight loss advice, as well as commenting on, well, things like this, like Tyra now being a plus size model and my experience in the modeling industry as someone who did lose 100 pounds. Also, leave me a comment below on what you guys think. Let me know if any of you have ever gone through a casting for like a modeling contest, or I think like someone, you know, commented the other day, they went through a casting process for American Idol and had kind of an interesting experience. So I just think that stuff is kind of fun. It's kind of interesting to think coulda, shoulda, woulda. But yeah, that's why you did not see me on America's Next Top Model. All right, guys, thank you for watching and listening, and I will see you guys next time.